So I will be honest and say that I had to read through this first chapter quite a few times and read over the definitions of these three words a few times because it wasn't quite black and white to me, as I like things to be when I'm learning the definitions of words. And so I really liked when the author said that when it comes to adequacy, equity, and equality, it means different things to different people, and more specifically, different things to different school districts. So once I kind of wrapped my head around that and realized there was no concrete answer, I was able to have a better understanding of, what they were trying to tell us that these words mean. And so overall, I do agree with how the author defined these three words. So for the first one, adequacy, looking at those three parts of it: efficiency, outcomes desired, and the ability of the government to provide appropriate funding at the level required. That is what makes the funding adequate. And so every district has to look at it from a different way for what that district desires. So for efficiency, is the district getting high achievement at the lowest cost possible? That would be a very efficient way to look at the funding. That's their goal. So that is the goal there. For outcomes desired, again, that's, different districts look at it differently. What academic opportunities and skills do we want our students to have? At what levels of performances? Are we looking at test scores, graduation requirements? So every district has to decide what are the outcomes desired for our funding to be adequate. And then, is the government providing the appropriate funding at the level required to be adequate? So I do agree with that. When it comes to equity, I know this is a really big hot button word in our district right now. When I had to interview the director of special ed for my practicum hours, that's the word she kept talking to me about, was equity, and how it's so important to understand that what is equal for students is not always the same for every student. It looks different in order to give them all the best opportunities possible to ensure that every child is being given everything they need to be successful. And that's treating them equally and giving them equity. So the parity of the educational opportunity. I agreed with the author in this book when that's how they defined it. Again, the parity of educational opportunity. So, there's that horizontal equity. The educational opportunity for two individuals should be the same. That was, one way to look at equity. The vertical equity, which the author defined as the equal treatment of unequals. So in attempting to treat all kids fairly results in different levels of fairness. And so I think that's what my district really strives for, those different levels of fairness to find what can help every kid be successful. That vertical equity is so important. And then there was lots of different parts of equity. And then there was performance equity, assuring that each individual attains a minimum level of performance. The opportunity equity, providing equal access to educational resources. That is so important, that they all have the same opportunity to get to the resources. And then I did agree with the author on, with social equity is not something that schools have control of, but it directly affects their ability to educate children. So schools will always be inequitable as long as there is socioeconomic segregation, which I did agree with. And then when it comes to equality, that is educational opportunity. And again, I agreed with the author there, especially when they said that differences in educational opportunity and equality have persisted in the United States since its inception. So whenever we're talking about education, we're always talking about equality. First it was racial equality, gender equality, students with disabilities equality, undocumented children equality. So are all children being given the same treatment, the same rights, the same services in education? That is equality, that all students are being treated equal, no matter their gender, no matter their race, disabilities, etc. So I do agree with what the author said there. When it comes to hot button issues in our district right now, this is a very timely question. Our superintendent has been visiting all of our campuses talking about one of the big election topics or things looking to pass tomorrow. I have it pulled up on my other computer because it's a lot of information. Our district is looking to pass the voter approval tax rate election. VATER is what they're calling it. So this will increase revenue for classroom instruction. It will help fund different programs in our district. It will help reduce the budget deficit, increase revenue for student programs. One of the most important things, offer competitive teacher and staff salaries and maximize Plano ISD's funding. So our website right now has so much information on what this means because it's a little confusing because they were saying that this is voters have to approve a modified tax rate that will increase revenue for student programs as well as teacher and staff salaries, but it will also cause their tax rate to go down. And so they went into big detail about how that works and everything. So the district is really hoping that this passes in the election tomorrow. And again, this will cause the tax rate to be lower, and it will bring in a lot of funding for our district that they have a really detailed plan laid out for what all that funding will be used for. And so, and this is also really important because our COVID relief funds, we are not able to use those anymore. Those have run out. So we need this other money to fund other things. And if this VATER proposition is not approved, it will really force them to make a lot of budget cuts that will affect staffing, pay, class size, and a lot of different programs. So we're really hoping that this passes and that the voters will support the VATER. So that's just the big issue in my district right now. So I look forward to seeing what the other issues are in other districts.